just under 40% of the respondents noted that they have strengthened risk controls in the areas of sanctions and export controls, down from 45% just 2 years ago. And this despite the increased focus on the sanctions and export controls enforcement and compliance issues. Now, that to me is a disturbing finding because we've all been warned over and over about the coming sanctions and export control enforcement storm. And DOJ, trust me, is going to be leading this storm. They've assigned 25 new prosecutors, designated one as the leader for going against corporations, and dedicated time from all their staff as to making sure that sanctions and export controls are adhered to.
Global companies face unprecedented risks and challenges in today's economy. To mitigate these legal and economic risks, companies are rapidly embracing and elevating the importance of robust ethics and compliance programs to promote positive corporate citizenship. On Corruption, Crime, and Compliance, you'll hear from industry leaders and insiders about how to create effective ethics and compliance programs that will mitigate risks and maximize financial performance. Here's your host, Michael Volkov.
Welcome, everybody. This is Mike Volkov, and we're here for another episode of Corruption, Crime, and Compliance. And today we're going to talk about, and welcome, by the way, from Sicily, recording from Sicily these days, working from Sicily. Hope somebody, if you're ever interested and plan on coming to Sicily, please reach out to me. We'll love to give you some ideas on things to do, places to go here. Anyways, from Sicily, we're going to talk about today LRN's 2024 Program Effectiveness Report, which once again underscores the importance of corporate values, culture, adaptation, and accountability. Normally, I will have an LRN representative, but Susan Divers, who usually appears with us, unfortunately has left LRN. So we're going to come back to LRN's great studies in May. They're coming out with an ethical culture study, and we'll be talking about that. But let's talk about what I think is always a great report that comes out from LRN, and that's its program effectiveness studies. And LRN always sets the standard for me, at least for ethics and compliance program research, because it's usually data-based and that there's more to it than just simply esoteric assessments. And LRN's research has always confirmed what I know, what we all know and believe, which is ethical companies perform better in the marketplace over the long run. It's an intuitive fact that employees respond better to values-based leadership than a rules-based environment and culture. So we are committed to that mission with our clients, our colleagues, our partners, and thought leadership. And LRN's latest report was based on a survey of more than 1,400 ethics and compliance professionals, most of whom were employed at organizations with at least 1,000 employees in 19 different countries and 26 industries across North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. And I would urge everybody to get a copy of the LRN report. They're just terrific resources and can help to persuade, I think, internal stakeholders on the importance of ethics and compliance. And LRN's report begins with a basic finding as a foundation for its additional insights, which are important to the compliance profession. Risk mitigation and analysis has matured as the focus for all ethics and compliance programs and professionals. And so LRN identified a new and important trend, which is 60% of organizations now have incorporated ethical behavior into performance management, hiring decisions, promotions, and bonuses as a means to elevate ethical conduct incentives. Interestingly, as compliance programs mature, organizations are focusing on mitigating risks posed by, let's say, complex government regulations, information security, AI, artificial intelligence, now the hot issue, and data protection, while reducing attention to anti-corruption and anti-bribery issues. Now that, I don't want to see a reduction so much as I'd like to see, the continued focus on anti-corruption and anti-bribery issues while we are addressing some of these other risks that are coming up. At the same time, companies are making significant changes to their respective ethics and compliance programs to reflect the workplace needs of remote and hybrid employees. And that's an important trend as well. because we're seeing now, since the COVID-19 disturbance has sort of settled down and we see a more sort of regular workplace with part-time in-office working arrangements maturing, that now we need to sort of design our compliance programs to include the remote and hybrid employees. So for 2024 priorities, the LRN report noted the following top priorities. 1, training content. 2, measuring ethical culture, which is important. 3, improving web-based compliance resources. 4, internal controls. And 5, audit and compliance monitoring plans. And to me, this is a great top 5 list, and I think these priorities probably apply to a lot of companies. Interestingly, the LRN report data revealed that most companies have devoted attention to meeting detailed regulatory requirements and guidance on effective ethics and compliance programs. And that obviously reflects the Department of Justice's new guidance that came out in March of 2023. And we're getting more guidance with regard to sanctions compliance coming out of the joint compliance notices, the tripart, the DOJ, Department of Treasury, and Department of Commerce putting out a lot of guidance with regard to sanctions compliance. Now, additionally, respondents cited the following 5 sources of information as useful for evaluating their compliance program and identifying areas for improvement. 1, misconduct trends and patterns. 2, risk analysis. 3, root cause analysis data for compliance lapses. 4, code of conduct and policy clicks on specific topics. And 5, surveys of ethical culture. Number 4 is an interesting issue that DOJ has spent time on and sort of articulated their desire to have intranet measurement of traffic to your code of conduct and policy clicks as a way to sort of monitor what people are interested in and why they're reading certain topics and clicking on certain policies. Interesting, and something that should be looked at. Now, the LRN report further identified the importance of senior management engagement in the operationalization of risk mitigation controls and company values. 52% of the respondents confirmed that senior executives dedicated more than words but actual actions to fulfilling their ethics and compliance responsibilities. This is an important indicator of commitment to ethics and compliance. And the LRN report noted that 53% of the respondents disciplined or terminated a senior executive for unethical conduct in the past year. So holding them accountable and holding senior executives accountable for misconduct is very, very important for sending a message throughout the company as to the importance of ethical conduct, the values that you want to instill in people, and that your expectations with regard to their conduct. Additionally, 73% of ethical organizations have defined clawback programs now to deter senior executive misconduct. Now, that's interesting because we do have an SEC clawback requirement now for publicly traded companies with regard to financial restatements. But there's a whole separate area that DOJ has been pushing, which is compliance clawbacks or compliance program penalties that have to include clawbacks or postponement or even loss of deferred compensation programs when you have misconduct exhibited by that particular executive. So these are 2 areas, and it's interesting that we're now seeing more of these clawback programs being implemented as a way to deter senior executive misconduct. Now, some other interesting findings from the LRN report. Nearly 2/3, 63%, stated that their boards actively ensured that misconduct by senior executives or excellent performers was addressed. Almost 80% of ethics and compliance professionals stated that their organization relies on values rather than rules to ensure ethical behavior. And this is a 26% increase from LRN's 2016 report. So notice the change and the rise of ethics as an ethical behavior tied to value-based behavior as opposed to anything else. 4 out of 5 high-performing programs noted that their board engaged in ethics and compliance program oversight, maintained ethics and compliance expertise, and received ethics and compliance training. Now, that to me is a great addition are great finding because everybody has been pushing the idea of having a board that has ethics and compliance expertise and having somebody who has some expertise in that area so that they can sort of oversee and monitor the ethics and compliance program. And providing that expertise is just invaluable at the board level. So that's a terrific finding. Another interesting finding is that just under 40% of the respondents noted that they have strengthened risk controls in the areas of sanctions and export controls, down from 45% just 2 years ago. And this despite the increased focus on the sanctions and export controls enforcement and compliance issues. Now that to me is a disturbing finding because we've all been warned over and over about the coming sanctions and export control enforcement storm. And DOJ, trust me, is going to be leading this storm. They've assigned 25 new prosecutors, designated one as the leader for going against corporations, and dedicated time from all their staff as to making sure that sanctions and export controls are adhered to. So this finding to me is unusual, it's disturbing, and frankly inexplicable given the current risk framework and the enforcement storm that's about to come. But we'll talk more about that as we see more incidents arising and more enforcement actions coming. Finally, just a couple of notes that LRN's report is just basically another important reminder that the link between ethical culture and business performance is inextricable, meaning companies that perform, that adhere to an ethical culture, to promote their ethical culture, perform better in the long run in the marketplace. That doesn't mean that they are going to be profitable. It means that they're more profitable than they would otherwise be. A critical cornerstone of a company's financial performance reflects the link between its ethical culture and its business operations. Both reinforce the other and promote a synergy that is essential for every organization. LRN's report is just another sort of brick in the wall of the message that is clear here that ethical companies have to be maintained, that your ethical culture has to be your key control when it comes to ensuring ethical behavior and compliance with all applicable laws and regulations and your code of conduct, obviously. All right, folks. Well, that was just a quick overview of the LRN report. We're looking forward to their next report in May. We'll be back next week with another episode of Corruption, Crime, and Compliance. Be good.
If you enjoyed this episode, the best way to support the show is by subscribing on your favorite listening platform. To learn more and connect with Michael Volkov, go to volkovlaw.com.